The former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Republican presidential candidate Newt Gingrich, on the cell phone today. Where are you traveling to this morning, Mr. Speaker?
Well, this morning we're going to Epsom. We're going to have a veterans breakfast honoring the veterans here on Veterans Day. And we're going to be meeting with folks at the Circle restaurant in Epsom Traffic Circle. So it should be a lot of fun. Then later on we'll be in Manchester, and at 3 o'clock we are going to open our new New Hampshire headquarters on Elm Street, and folks are invited if they want to come. At 3 o'clock they'll be open to the public, and be glad to see people.
As you establish a greater beachhead here in New Hampshire with your rising poll numbers, we'll talk about that in a moment. But on this Veterans Day, let's talk about the fact that returning veterans from Afghanistan, Iraq, unemployment rate at 15%. And the disconnect there is you look at the training that they get in our United States Armed Forces, the high-tech training they get, the skills they have when they come out of service, active duty to the United States of America. How do we put these men and women back to work?
Well, we need a much better and much more effective networking system so that 6 months before they get out, they're already having an opportunity to start electronically being connected with and interviewing with folks. We may need a program also of subsidizing specialized training so that if a business wants to hire them, that we help that business be able to retrain them for the specific capability of that business. I agree with you, and you look at the energy, the skills, the dedication, the patriotism of our young men and women in uniform. They should be the easiest people to place. But sometimes I think there's a whole challenge of, they're over there, the job's over here. How do we match the two up? It's certainly something the country owes every family that has been willing to serve. My dad spent 27 years in the infantry, and so as an Army brat, I really have a deep personal interest in trying to make sure that every person who leaves the military has an opportunity to really fully have the best possible job, and in a sense, not only to carry their skills into the private sector, but also to be recognized for the service they've done for America.
Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, Republican candidate for president, online at newt.org. Our guest this morning on WNTK, WUVR, 888-299-3151. If you would like to ask Mr. Gingrich a question, Brian would like to do that in Grafton. Brian, good morning. You're on with former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call, Mr. Gingrich. You've been highly critical of the media in this election cycle. My question is this. When Dr. Paul finishes first or second in the Iowa caucuses, do you think Fox News will be able to continue to ignore the Ron Paul movement?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. I saw a very, very funny program on the Comedy Channel where Jon Stewart showed how every single network somehow jumped over Ron Paul's performance in the Ames straw poll, where he, of course, did very, very well. Came in, I think it was within like 100 or 200 votes of being first, and yet they would skip past him. And I think that to some extent the news media has consistently understated his support and understated the importance of his ideas. His thinking on monetary policy, the importance of a sound dollar, auditing the Federal Reserve, reducing the role of the Federal Reserve. I mean, these are serious thoughts. And while I disagree deeply with him on foreign policy and national security issues, I think he brings a lot to the debate. And I think that when you watch the actual debates themselves, he's consistently one of the most interesting and one of the most thoughtful people on the panel.
Brian, terrific question. Thank you. Congressman Paul will be our guest in the next half hour, Mr. Gingrich. Is there a question that you would like to ask Ron Paul that you've never had the opportunity to do so far in any of the debate formats?
Well, I think it's really useful. You might ask him why it's been so hard to get auditing the Federal Reserve accomplished. I've come out strongly in support of his position on auditing the Federal Reserve. And yet in Washington, it's almost a forbidden topic. And I think that he's shown great courage in consistently talking about it. And I think the evidence is very clear now that it's something we should, in fact, be looking at very seriously.
You talked about reducing the federal government. A number of the Republican candidates are talking about reducing federal government. Yet when it comes to that actual point of reducing government, and we've seen it here on the state level in New Hampshire and also in Vermont, it's like, well, wait, yes, cut, but don't cut something that's going to affect me. So how do you cut without getting the backlash from American voters who say, well, yeah, it's okay for you to go cut, but as long as it doesn't affect me?
Well, okay, I think it's a natural instinct that there are two ways you can really get a very large-scale change, and I participated as Speaker of the House. I led the effort to get to 4 consecutive balanced budgets. We paid off $405 billion in national debt, and it took a tremendous effort, but it's doable. I think one is you've got to have people to decide this is real, that, yes, I'm going to sacrifice. A lot of other people are sacrificing a little bit, and we're doing it for our children and grandchildren. We're doing it for our country, and it's the right thing to do. I think that's the first thing. The second is you need to be smart about it. People don't want a cheap party. They want a smart party. I focus a lot of my energy, for example, on Medicare and Medicaid, on stop paying crooks. We actually wrote a book a couple of years ago at the Center for Health Transformation called Stop Paying the Crooks. Our estimate is that between $70 billion and $120 billion a year is paid to crooks. I don't mean people who make mistakes. I mean a dentist who files 982 procedures a day, or a dental agency in Brooklyn that had somebody stand out front who said, if you'll loan me your Medicaid card, we'll give you a free DVD player. That's what I mean by crook. Mm-hmm. I think virtually everybody agrees if you could save $70 to $120 billion a year, that's $1 trillion over 10 years, just by not paying people who are crooks. That would be an acceptable reform.
Republican presidential candidate Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House. We should get that dentist from Brooklyn to start drilling for oil. We could use him for our energy policy. Do we start drilling in a Gingrich presidency?
Absolutely. I think developing oil and gas resources is a very, very important part of what we need to be doing as a country. There's no question in my mind that we need to be independent of the Middle East, that it's a volatile region, and we don't want them to be able to blackmail us. So I'm very much for energy independence. Ironically, there's more total energy in the United States than any other country in the world, and it's an objective fact that if you develop coal, oil, gas, wind, solar, ethanol, all the different capabilities, nuclear, we literally could produce more energy than any place else in the world. And yet you had a government and a bureaucracy which has been consistently anti-American energy. And in President Obama, you have the most anti-American energy president in history, somebody who's closed down all development offshore. He's closed down development on federal lands. He's refused to even approve the pipeline to bring existing oil across to Houston, where it could be refined and used. I mean, just very consistently, the Obama administration has opposed the development of energy in the United States.
Mr. Speaker, we have about a minute left. Last night at the Granite State Patriots constitutional conversation, you were talking about the president's interpretation of the Constitution. What's the biggest constitutional failing of the Obama administration?
Well, I think he outrageously fails to be the leader of the United States. This most recent example, where he's filed lawsuits against Arizona and South Carolina over immigration, and they have welcomed foreign governments entering lawsuits against American states, is exactly the opposite of the intent of the Founding Fathers in creating the Constitution. The Constitution is designed to present us as a united country against foreign manipulation. Now you have the American president joining the foreigners in attacking American states. It is an absolutely outrageous performance and shows he has no idea about being president of the United States. I sometimes wonder what country he thinks he's president of.
And that got you a standing ovation last night. Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, Republican candidate for president, Newt.org on the World Wide Web. Mr. Speaker, always a pleasure having you on. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Good luck.
Good talking to you.